When I say that to people, they kind of look at me kind of curiously and they go, how about that? What I do is I administer an EPA mandated permit for the county. And that permit's mandate, and my mandate, is clean water. And we're going to go through how I do that and how you can help here in just a minute. Okay? Oops. Let's do it this way. Oops. Let's try it now. There we go. Stormwater program's goal is to limit pollutive discharges caused by development, construction, and other sources to the maximum extent practical. You can't stop everything, but you try to stop as much as it's possible to do. This is a picture of the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland, Ohio. It was taken in 1952. You'll notice that it's on fire. That's not the buildings along the riverside that are on fire. That's the actual river burning. It was so polluted at the time that it caught on fire. This was actually not an unusual event. This had been going on since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in America. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse throughout the years. And by the time 1952 was around, it was so bad that it was felt something had to be done. A little bit of history. 1948, the Federal Water Pollution Control Act was passed. 1970, the EPA was formed by Nixon, which a lot of people are surprised about that. 1971, the Clean Water Act was passed by Congress. In 1997, the Clean Water Act was amended to authorize the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, and that's what the Stormwater program devolved out of. In 2001, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, which we refer to as TDEC, notified the county that the stormwater program requirements must be implemented because of the growth in the county. 2003, the Montgomery County Stormwater Resolution was adopted, and in 2016, the most recent application for coverage under the MPDES rules, and we were successful in that application, and we now have a new permit. The permit cycle goes every 5 years, so we have to reapply every 5 years and show that we are meeting the requirements of the MPDES program. Quick look at it. If you look at the housing density in the year 2000, this is housing units per kilometer. And as you can see, the redder it gets, the more dense the housing. And you can see around Nashville, that bright red spot, but you can see if you look just to the northwest, you can see a very small spot. That's Clarksville. This is projected housing density in 2030. As you can see, that bright spot is spread quite a bit. This is why we have to be concerned. That increase in housing density also means a corresponding increase in pollution. The county's permit requires the enforcement of 6 best management practices: construction site runoff controls, post-construction runoff controls, illicit discharge detection and elimination program, good housekeeping program, public education and outreach program, and the public participation and involvement program. What we do, what I do actually, I review development and commercial construction plans to verify that all necessary pollution control measures are addressed before construction starts. That's very important, that I catch problems before they evolve at the construction site level. If we catch most of it, we limit as many discharges as possible. We don't get them all, but again, we do it to the maximum extent practical, and we do it in an evolving basis. So as the plans advance, so does our review process. So even when the plans are being implemented, Those plans are being updated to improve pollution control measures. We verify pollution control measures are installed correctly. That silt fence, that black fence, I'm sure you've all seen it around the county. That's a pollution control measure. You'll see it in varying stages of usefulness throughout the county and the city. There are other pollution control measures that we use, of course, that you probably can't see, but they're there. We verify post-construction pollution control measures and make sure that they will function to limit pollution control. This is a series of weirs that allow solids to fall out as they run through the system. By the time it gets to the end, most of the sediment has fallen out of the system into those tanks. The tanks are then emptied on a regular basis to get rid of the sediment. It's taken to the commercial landfill. We conduct illicit discharge pollution investigations. In other words, if you look at this dumpster, they had thrown away some paint cans, and it had rained, and the paint cans had been washed into the dumpster, which washed out. That's an illicit discharge. That's illegal. So when you see things like that, you need to bring it to somebody's attention. Usually most people call me. We encourage water quality buffer use, and in some cases, it's mandatory. Water quality buffer is an area of natural vegetation that runs along creeks and waterways. What that does is it allows runoff from outside that area to run through those vegetated buffers and to clean itself before it hits those creeks and streams. It's a very efficient system. I conduct public education classes like this one. I provide opportunities for public participation. Mostly that turns into creek and stream cleanups and tree planting events. We haven't had one in a while, but we started cooperating with the city of Clarksville to put these on. So together, we're able to meet this program requirement. We conduct system inventories and inspections to make sure that they're working properly. The one on the upper left obviously is not working properly. The one on the lower right is working properly. You can see the difference. It's an obvious thing when something fails here. We monitor county government operations and verify that all pollution prevention measures are being used. And we look at things like hazardous material handling and storage, fueling and maintenance operations, vehicle washing, building maintenance, and construction activity. What you're looking at is a sump that rainwater is supposed to collect in, then overflow, then run into this municipal separate storm sewer system, the stormwater drains. What had been happening was when they were cleaning the building, when they were stripping the floors, they were taking the material that had been stripped off the floors and dumping it into the storm drain. Some citizen noticed that the storm drain output was white, and we traced it back to this, and we made them stop and clean it out. So that was one of the things that we take care of, and we usually catch right away because citizens notice it and they give us a call. They usually try to have one a year. Sometimes they're able to get two going a year. And it's a pretty good program here. If you only have to wait every 6 months to drop that stuff off, it's easy to save it. Report illicit discharges. When you see somebody dumping oil into the storm sewer, when you see somebody dumping stuff out in the street, when you see people cleaning their concrete waste off in the street, you need to report that. You can report it to the 911 system because it is illegal to do that. Just remember, it's easier to report it to me because I'm non-emergency. She has a couple of my cards that she'll give out at the end of this. If we don't have enough, I'll go get some more. And that way, if you see something, you can report it. Choose green infrastructure. Green infrastructure is infrastructure that treats storm runoff water on site before it leaves wherever you are. For example, if you've got permeable pavement in your parking lot or brick pavers instead of concrete, that water is absorbed into the brick pavers, into the gravel layer underneath, where it can either infiltrate or evaporate more slowly into the air. It's not automatically just run off, taking the pollution with it. There is maintenance involved with things like this, but the maintenance is usually nominal if it's well designed. And this is a shot of the Cumberland River from a little hill outside of Clarksville. My boss took that picture. Any questions? No questions? Yes, ma'am.
What was NPDES?
I'm sorry, that was the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. I'm sorry, I think I said it before, but I didn't associate the acronym with it. That's our permit. That's what's required. That's what the EPA, through the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, requires us to follow as a county. That's the mandate that I have. Any other questions? Just a quick note. Around Clarksville and Montgomery County, you see a lot of sinkholes. We have sinkholes because this area is built over limestone formations that are called karst. That karst limestone, that means that it basically forms cracks in the rocks that water travels through. So as water travels through those cracks, through the soil, it washes some of that soil away with it, and eventually that creates the collapse that's known as a sinkhole, okay? Sinkholes can be big, they can be small, they're easy to spot in farmers' fields because generally speaking, you see a clump of trees in the middle of the field and you wonder, wow, why didn't he clear that out? You know, he could have plowed all that area up and put it into production. Well, generally speaking, that's a sinkhole. What he's done is the most important thing that he could do, which is leave it vegetated. Leaving it vegetated generally stabilizes it and allows it to be what it is, a sinkhole. Slows the growth, it just stays there, takes on water, does its thing. The vegetation acts as a buffer to filter out contaminants before they go into the sinkhole. And it's just a good system. Now, the farmers have known this for 100 years because that's why they leave them alone. People these days want to fix them, and that's fine. But keep in mind, if all you're doing is putting dirt in the sinkhole, it'll eventually wash out again and reform. It may take it a year, may take it 2 years, but it will eventually reform. The reason I'm mentioning sinkholes so much is that because they're around here, they tend to wash in pollutants and contaminants very quickly, and it goes directly into the groundwater formations. So we have to be careful around these sinkholes not to allow runoff from contaminated sources to go into these sinkholes. Okay? Now, somebody usually asks me, well, I have one in my property, how much does it cost to fix? To dig out a sinkhole and fix it can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 easily. Well, what do you do about it? There are several fixes that you can do that are short-term and less expensive. One is lining it with a geotextile and filling it with rock. That filters out the contaminants and keeps children and animals out of it. That's what we recommend. If you can afford the fix, great. Now, here's the other thing. Most insurance companies will not pay to have a sinkhole fixed unless it's actually damaging the structure of your house or threatening it. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're walking a piece of property and you're thinking about buying, and you're looking at it and you see this big hole in the backyard, you have to wonder to yourself, what is that? Most people don't even think about it. They think, oh, look, there's a hole. There's more to it in Montgomery County than just a hole. That thing may continue to get larger, and it's something to be aware of when you're looking at property or when you see something like that develop on your own property. Again, any questions about that? All right. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. Again, my name is John Doss. I work out of Building and Codes. If you have any questions or wish to report something, please feel free to call us. We're always available.